Great. Thank you so much for that very informational presentation, Zen.
Thank
So,
you.
so now we're going to begin our live Q&A session. I'll be asking some questions as well as opening up to the audience. You went over all of the ways to contact you and where to get your books, so that's great. Before we begin the Q&A, I just want to go over a few things so everybody understands the process. We don't take questions directly from the chat. Instead, we ask everyone to virtually raise their hand. If you're not sure how to do this, what you need to do is click on the reactions button toward the second to the right on the bottom of Zoom. Then click on the raise hand function in the menu that pops up. We'll take questions in the order in which they are received. When it's your turn, we will unmute you and ask you to state where you're from and ask your question. When you've asked your question, then I will mute you. And we ask that everyone keep their questions brief and on topic. In order to give everyone a chance, we won't be taking follow-up questions. However, if you do wish to ask another question, you can just raise your hand again. And if we have time, then we will get to you. So I see that we have some folks that are raising their hands already. So I will start off with Cheryl. Cheryl, please state where you're from and ask your question.
I'm from Santa Rosa, California. Hi, Zen. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. We're all so lucky to have you in the world.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome. And my question is about the Prop 65 toxin warning that's on foods in California. And it's been, frankly, hard for me to figure out why it's on a lot of organic, fair trade, single ingredient items, but not on highly processed foods that are loaded with GMOs. For example, it's on my organic matcha green tea powder, and it's on Foods Alive nutritional yeast. And for a while, it was on my raw organic cacao nibs, and then it disappeared from that. And then for a while in California, it was on all the shelves that had organic balsamic vinegar. And now it's not there anymore. And when I asked someone about that at the Whole Foods market, like, why is it on my raw cacao nibs, but not on the processed foods with a million ingredients that include chocolate, the person said it was political. And so I wonder, like, do you personally pay attention to those? Don't you live in California, I think?
I did live in California. I left California predominantly because of the vaccine laws and because I wanted to grow my own food. And so I moved to Western North Carolina. I live in the Asheville area now. But I know, okay, I can't say I know exactly why that's happening, but I have an insight to why that's happening because I was approached by a man who runs a company. It was some type of environmental health company. And what he does is he tests foods like chocolates, chocolate foods and protein powders and supplements specifically for the ingredients that are listed on the Prop 65 list so that he can sue them and get money from them. And then they are then required to not sell that product in California. But then they can go ahead and sell that product everywhere else across the United States and still continue poisoning everybody. And what he predominantly would test for was heavy metals. So it is my guess that that chocolate is likely, and those products have heavy metal levels that are unacceptable for California's, laws. And California is stricter than the federal government. And you're saying no, Prop 65 also has to do with what's in the packaging. Yes, it can. The Prop 65 it can be related to the packaging, but it can also be related to the ingredients that are in the food. And this man in particular was testing for what was in the food or in the supplement. But the packaging can also, can contain plastics or parabens or things like that. But it would have to say that on the label that this packaging, right, it violates Prop 65 laws. When you're at a restaurant in California, it will say some of the ingredients in the food here, violate Prop 65. And what that means is that the Prop 65 is it really is a good thing that somebody is actually paying attention to what's going on in the food supply. And I've met many people at OEHA, the Office of Health Hazard and Assessment, and they really are looking at it very closely. I mean, they've been sued by Monsanto. They are, working pretty hard to make sure that we don't consume harmful chemicals. And so that means that those chemicals are either carcinogenic or they're endocrine disrupting. I don't think they have to determine which one the chemical is and which one it is, whether it's a cancer, carcinogenic, or endocrine disrupting. But those are the two categories that they look at. They don't look at nerve damage or like nervous system damage or other types of damage. They look at just those two, cancer causing and endocrine disruption. So something is going on with those foods, and my guess would be the heavy metals, although Leilani Booker says that it could have to do with the packaging, which is an excellent point as well.
Great. Thank you for that answer, Zen. Our next question is coming from Stephen. Stephen, please state where you're from and ask your question.
I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I appreciate the presentation. And I just want you to repeat the name of the organization where you can go stay at a farm.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Stephen. So it's the Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. So it's called WWOOF, WWOOF. And you go to that website and pay like a $40 membership fee, I think. And you can find places around the world. It's so exciting. I really would like to do that with my sons. I don't know, maybe this summer or next summer. There's actually a place in Thailand where you can go to in Chiang Mai, and you can work on an organic farm, and they will teach you how to cook Thai food, which is delicious. And they'll also teach you how to train elephants. They have elephants that, help out with the, moving logs around or whatever they do there. And so there, and we just did this in the United States. We stayed on organic farms. We harvested garlic. We harvested kale. We worked with, there were some religious communities that we visited. So it was a very good experience for our kids to see different types of religious communities. There's people who have homes that you can stay in, or you can stay in an RV. I mean, it's amazing. I worked alongside people from Korea on a farm, harvesting garlic. There was somebody there from somewhere in Europe. There were, community members, people from around the world that were helping out and supporting farmers. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. So I highly encourage you to do that.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Our next question is coming from Marley. Marley, please state where you're from and ask your question.
Yes, good afternoon, Zen. My name is Marley, and I am from Hollywood, South Florida. And just a quick side note, I love your art behind you. Love to hear also who the artist is. But
thank you. That's my art.
What is it?
It's my art.
It's beautiful.
Oh,
it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
But my question is, I'm very interested in growing my own vegetables with the community. And I know you kind of reviewed a few of the resources, but what would you recommend is the easiest way to start with somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with growing their own vegetables?
Oh, that's great. Well, Ann Temple, my cohort and co-founder of Neighborhood Food Network. Oh, she's on here right now. That's great. Hi, Ann. She'll probably post the link to the Neighborhood Food Network. And on the Neighborhood Food Network, we have a blog and we have a lot of tips and planning. I would say, I mean, if you want to be really basic, you can get pots and you can start growing tomatoes in pots, that kind of thing. Like cherry tomatoes are delicious and very rewarding to grow cherry tomatoes in pots. But if you do have a bit of land, I would encourage that you do, it doesn't have to necessarily be a raised bed. You can just get some mulch or some, soil, make sure that, or if you have good soil, you want it to be kind of loomy soil, not hard clay. It's difficult to start growing in that, but just grow your favorite vegetables, grow things that are more prolific. Like I would not start with carrots because they're kind of hard to sprout, and cauliflower and broccoli and things like that, because they have cabbage moths that come and they're more difficult. I would start with zucchini and yellow squash, spinach will grow all, like Malabar spinach will grow all season long. And it's just wonderful to have a source of spinach that you can grab handfuls and put it in your smoothie in the morning. Kale is also very easy to grow. Lettuce is very easy to grow, but be mindful not to plant too much lettuce, because then you can't preserve lettuce, right? Or you just go ahead and grow a lot, and then you can share it with your neighbors. So those are some of the crops. And tomatoes, of course, are amazing, but you do need to start them early if you want to grow from seeds. So at this point, I would just buy some tomato starts from people and watch a little video that we have on Neighborhood Food Network. I believe we have a video about how to plant tomatoes. You have to plant them deep in the ground and give them an eggshell and Epsom salts, some things like that. But once you start growing, I'm telling you, you're not going to go back. It's just the most delicious food you've ever had in your life. It's so flavorful, and you feel so proud of yourself. And it's so wonderful to share the food that you've grown. And if you have kids, you're, teaching them, and they feel proud of themselves and accomplished. It's really wonderful.
Thank you for that, Zen.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you respond to arguments that GMOs are safe, and people who kind of poo-poo the whole idea? How do you communicate with that? How do you open up people's eyes to the fact that that this really is an issue? And this audience is very friendly to your message. How do you go about speaking to people on that, especially when they say that this is necessary to grow enough food for the world population?
Yes, that's a great point. I have gotten that from many people. One of my classmates used to work at Pepsi. One of my high school classmates, and when we reconnected, he had those very same questions. And I said, well, I understand that that's what the public is being told, that GMOs are being grown for a noble intention to feed the world. But the fact is, if you look historically at the world, look at China and India, they have the largest populations in the world, and they've been around for 5,000 years, documented 5,000 years, growing food, agriculture systems, and they have not used GMOs or glyphosate. And one might even say that they are that large because they ate organic food, right? And so if you look at it, GMOs and glyphosate and these toxic chemicals have only been around for the past 40, 50 years. They're a new technology that's actually destroying our immune systems. And I would just encourage them to look at the science. If you go to Moms Across America and you look at our data, you can see that there are numerous studies showing that GMOs actually they may increase yield for the first year or two, but they don't increase, nutrition. They don't increase taste. And then they actually decline. The yield declines, and they produce less than organic crops. And they deplete the soil in such a way that other crops can't grow. And then that farmer becomes actually a slave to the chemical system of fertilization and also chemicals that, destroy the bugs and the weeds of the flora and the fauna. And so I would assert that there have been promises made by GMO producers that are not being fulfilled. And I would invite them to look closer at the science of what is actually being shown to be produced and how it's actually working. And you can just look at the most recent GMO projects. And pink pineapple, who needs pink pineapples, right? Apples that don't brown, who cares? Just eat the apple, right? And potatoes that don't brown, you know what that means? It doesn't mean that they're not rotting. They're still rotting, and you will still smell them as rotten potatoes. You just don't see the browning. So then that allows the restaurant owners to cut up those potatoes and make them into French fries or mashed potatoes, and you don't know it. So the things that they're coming out with are things that they're trying to appeal to consumer, like, oh, it has more vitamin A. Well, you've got to eat 27 cups of that rice to have enough vitamin A for your body. You know what I mean? Something like that. What they're producing is not useful to us. I don't want salmon that's genetically engineered to grow 4 times fatter, 4 times faster, and be sterile. I don't want a GMO 2.0 that's CRISPR genetically engineered that has thousands of off-target mutations. I've got inappropriate media and school and sports to worry about with my kids. I don't need to worry about food that has that causes thousands of off-target mutations or contains pesticides or is coated with herbicides. Those 3 factors are not interesting to me as a mother or appealing to me to feed my children.